On December 20th of each year, the Hatenashi Mountains of Wakayama and Nara prefectures become a killing ground. A spirit that often goes unseen lets loose its rage on the unsuspecting people who are walking the mountain trails. Ippon-Datara, the fallen blacksmith. The hammer's thunder resounded throughout the year. Day after day, the sound was as natural as the birds within the trees and their pleasant melodies. The distance softened the hammer's power, its echo, ever present but soft, pleasant even. Its rhythmic nature helped the mind focus, even if the sound became an unnoticeable and ever-present fact of life within the village. All the villagers knew the old blacksmith who lived up the mountain's trail. During the wars that were now ended, his blades were the stuff of legend. The greatest warriors of the land, even the shogun himself, sought to wield the old smith's blades. Being known to such influential people made it difficult for the man to focus on his work. So, with the war ended, he reclused himself to the mountains. No heir to his wealth, no apprentice to his mastery. Just a desire, an unquenched, powerful desire, to create a blade that was unparalleled in this world. The village didn't mind the man. At first, the distant thunder of his hammer strikes were a mild annoyance, but they became natural after some time. He rarely visited them. The people of the town saw him maybe once or twice a month. He'd need a few supplies he couldn't get on his own up in the mountains. And so things were for many years. One day, a rice farmer by the name of Ken was making repairs on his home. He wasn't a carpenter, but he knew how to do a simple task like this. He simply had to use his mallet and replace one of the wooden beams on his outer roof. It was a decorative beam, so there wasn't any risk to the structure, and so he hammered away. After many strikes, the beam was where it should be. It was then that it dawned on him. It was a beautiful day. Birds were singing, and a mild breeze rolled through. It was a rather warm day this winter, but the revelation was something was missing in the air. There was no rhythm, no hammer strikes, and it was only midday. Ken had sold rice to the old man countless times and even considered him a friend, so he grew worried. The smith was rather old after all. It wasn't too far of a walk, and one could easily make it there and back with some daylight left to spare. So Ken decided that he would check on the old man. Ken feared that the old man's age had finally caught up to him, or perhaps some other tragedy. Ken grabbed supplies and set out. As he walked the trail, the absence of the hammer's thunder was unnerving. For years, it had been a constant and as reliable as the sun rising. The blacksmith's home was in sight. As Ken approached, he thought that the house seemed pretty normal. There was no visible signs of an animal or brigands breaking in. Ken decided he would avoid the main building for now and walk around to the forge area. It was then that he saw it. Ken's stomach sank. There was blood, and a lot of it. A human leg was lying next to the anvil. The anvil itself was soaked with blood. Atop it lay an unfinished blade. There was countless finished blades all over the walls. Why was this one left unfinished? If something had broken in, surely the man could have defended himself. The peculiar thing was that, although the blade was unfinished, it was simply left atop the anvil, and the smith's cherished hammer was missing. A sound could be heard from outside the forge. There it was again, like something massive slamming into the earth. Ken grabbed the nearest sword and proceeded outside. Whatever claimed the old man would not claim him too. He walked slowly forward. He saw nothing. Something struck Ken's head so hard that he was tossed 3 meters. He lost consciousness for a moment. Opening his eyes, blood was running down his face. The massive blow left him barely able to see. A mixture of pain and the blood clouding his vision. But through that, he saw it. One massive eye staring down at him. The creature stood taller than any man, and balanced itself upon a single leg. In its right hand it held the blacksmith's cherished hammer, its mouth and singular eye filled with hatred and rage. It was then that Ken saw the clothes it wore. They were torn and shredded, but unmistakable. The smith wore very unique clothes, after all. And now this monster wore them. Ken could not believe it. Either this creature took everything from the blacksmith, or this creature was the blacksmith. But he had no more time to ponder such things. Unable to move from the prior strike, he could but watch, as the furious one-eyed creature leaped into the air and brought its massive muscular leg down, crushing his entire body underfoot. The village never found Ken, nor the blacksmith. Welcome back to my channel. Here we take a look at a variety of different monsters, spirits, and all other kinds of supernatural entities of Japan. Today we'll be exploring the one-eyed, one-legged monster known as Ippon-Datara. Ippon-Datara's name is constructed of two parts. Ippon being a counting phrase used to count many things, though it usually refers to long or stick-like objects. In the case of Ippon-Datara, the one long thing we are referring to is his singular leg. The second part of his name, Datara, is in reference to a tatara, which is a traditional Japanese bellows furnace used in the process of smelting iron and steel. Later, this term came to refer to the building rather than simply the bellows of the furnace. Historically, Japan had a very low amount of raw iron in its mountainous regions, unlike many of its nearby nations, so they invented this method that allowed them to take their sand, which was very rich in iron, and forge it as if they had taken raw iron from an ore vein. Though the tatara probably deserves a video all on its own, so we'll leave it at that. Ippon-Datara's appearance, as was mentioned, is distinct and included in his name. He has one strong muscular leg rather than two, and this is important when we get into the potential origins of this monster. Also tied to his origin is the fact that he has only one large eye. The rest of his appearance varies based on the tale or depiction, though generally he is a very humanoid, but a bit monstrous at times. Sometimes he is depicted as rather boar-like with tusks and fur around his torso. Other times he is humanoid, but with torn clothing. Other times he is entirely naked and rather inhuman, with his face being in the center of his torso. The behavior of Ippon-Datara does vary based on the tale, but as this creature is isolated to one small region of Japan, he does not have as much variance as many other ghosts and yokai do. Ippon-Datara is considered to be mostly harmless, and won't even show himself for most of the year, except for a single day. On December 20th, a violent rage consumes Ippon-Datara, and should he come across a mountain traveler, he will violently stomp them to death. In most tales, he simply kills people, however there are tales where he will eat them after their demise. It is said that for reasons unknown to us, he will never attack a mailman, which is, odd. Ippon-Datara has two major origin stories, though there are a few others as well. By far, the most common story is that of the fallen blacksmith. In this story, Ippon-Datara used to be a human. He was a blacksmith who dedicated his life to being the very best at his craft. However, be it banishment from the village, failure to create a masterwork, or some other reason, the blacksmith falls into despair. The crushing negativity warps and shapes him into a monstrosity. The tatara furnace requires excessive use of one leg, destroying the leg over many years of hard work. As such, it falls off when the blacksmith becomes Ippon-Datara. The flames of the furnace are viciously bright, but require the focus of the blacksmith all the same. As such, the eye that was closest to the flames grows weaker and weaker, and it is lost upon the transformation into Ippon-Datara. The Ippon-Datara of this origin still seek to perfect their craft, but are lost to the insanity of transforming into such a monster and will never complete their goal. The second major origin story for Ippon-Datara is that of the mountain boar god turned vile. In this story, Ippon-Datara was originally known as Inosasao, a wild mountain boar god with bamboo growing all over it. At some point, hunters had shot the boar, leaving it gravely wounded. Inosasao began to resent and detest humans as he suffered from his wounds. The boar god took his humanoid form and proceeded to rest in the hot springs in Wakayama Prefecture in hopes of healing his wounds. However, they would never heal. He transformed into a vile creature known as Ippon-Datara. The terrifying creature began to wreak havoc on the villages that were located in the Hatenashi mountain range. From that day on, no one dared enter the mountains. At some point, a high priest was walking through that region of Japan and learned from the fleeing villagers about Ippon-Datara and his carnage. The high priest came up with a solution that would seal away the creature, but no seal was perfect and always came with a catch. For all days but one, the creature would be sealed. Once a year, the creature would be allowed to wreak its havoc once more, and then be forced away again. That day, the day that was chosen, would be December 20th, also known as Hate no Hatsuka in that region of Japan, the 20th of the end. There are many additional tales of Ippon-Datara's potential origin as well, but these have much less information about them. Some believe that Ippon-Datara is an avatar of the Shinto deity known as Ame no Mahitotsu, the one-eyed god of heaven, who also goes by the name Amatsumara, the one eye of heaven. Both of these names refer to the same Shinto deity who is a one-eyed god of blacksmithing and ironworking. The connection is, well, rather clear. Ippon-Datara is a one-eyed blacksmith, and this Shinto deity is also a one-eyed blacksmith. However, unlike many of the thousands of lesser god spirits of Shinto, this is a major deity, with tales involving other deities such as Amaterasu. As such, I think it would be kind of strange for such a powerful deity of blacksmithing to take the form of a humanoid-sized monster and kill people. It's not really something that's in his portfolio. Other variations of Ippon-Datara include a similar tale to that of the blacksmith, although this time he is a woodcutter who has lost his limbs in an accident. Other tales say he is a mountain bandit who had become corrupted by supernatural entities. In some villages, Ippon-Datara was considered to be the cousin of a kappa known as Gourai, which during wintertime transforms from a water spirit into a mountain spirit called Kashambo until spring. Here, Ippon-Datara is believed to be one of these Kashambo spirits. Others believe Ippon-Datara to be a type of mountain kami, a god spirit that has been corrupted over the ages and transformed into a yokai. The single eye is a common trait amongst these mountain spirits. Outside of the Hatenashi mountain range, there are a few other places that have a very similar yokai called Yuki Nudo. Although this is a snow-based monster, the physical description is very similar to that of Ippon-Datara. Bald or mostly bald, one eye, one leg, and big footprints. Personally, I really like the fallen blacksmith story more than the corrupted spirit story. It gives a lot of humanity to Ippon-Datara, the cost of losing yourself in your work. Hard work is a very valuable thing that I think many people in the modern day seem to forget about. There's many people who are kind of just entitled and want things handed to them and don't really want to work for it. They just want instant gratification. However, there are many people who have the opposite approach as well and work themselves to death and all their efforts go to waste and people just don't appreciate how much work they actually put into things. So clearly a balance is needed. We need to work hard, but we can't forsake ourselves in the process. And to me, that's what Ippon-Datara represents, an unhealthy obsession with work. You should work and you should be proud of your work, but you also can't work yourself to death. Regarding modern media, Ippon-Datara doesn't have the same popularity as a character such as Yuki-onna, who appeared in my previous video. He doesn't really receive many major roles in anything, though he does still appear in quite a few things. In my own personal time, I think the most memorable encounter I have was fighting him in Nioh 2, where he appears as a reoccurring but non-standard enemy type. I'm really not that great at Soulsborne games, and Nioh 2 is kind of a Souls clone in a way, and I'm just extra bad at that one because it has a few unique mechanics that I just suck at, like the stance switching. So I've been crushed to death by him dozens of times. Another appearance that many JRPG fans will know is in the Shin Megami Tensei series, where he is a reoccurring demon that appears in almost every game in the series. He even appears in Persona 4 and 5. Thank you all for taking the time to learn about Ippon-Datara with me. My attraction to this guy had to do more with the concept of a blacksmith being corrupted more so than his physical appearance or abilities, of which he doesn't have any. Next time, I think I want to take a look at something significantly more monstrous, as both Yuki-onna and Ippon-Datara are rather human-like in appearance, and since those two are both yokai, perhaps I will look at something different entirely. Though of course it'll still be within the realm of supernatural creatures within Japan. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe, and please leave a comment down below with any suggestions you might have for future video topics. I'll see you all next time with more mythology and folklore of Japan.